Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to another weather forecast by Asian Weather Forecast. It's going to be another update on the potential for a large and widespread upcoming major winter storm. There has been a few differences here, as well as some changes in the overall location, as well as track of this snowstorm. So we have a lot. I wouldn't say a lot, but we have a few significant changes in the forecast for the snowstorm. So if you guys have not already done so, I would recommend you guys subscribe to the channel, smash that like button and bell icon. But without further ado, let's get in the forecast. So the first thing I want to look at is the overall 500 millibar height. So as we continue throughout the week, we're going to be seeing some very intense ridging all across the United States. And that's why it's going to be so darn warm all across the whole continental United States here. We're going to be seeing some 70s and 60s all the way from the west central United States, including Montana, way above average, to getting back into the 80s across the deep southeast coast. So going to be seeing some really warm temperatures across the week here as a result of that very strong polar vortex, strong positive Arctic oscillation, as well a pretty strong positive North Atlantic oscillation. So overall, the pattern is having a lot of above average pressure across the lower altitude, so that's why it's going to be pretty warm. However, that will change as we start to see a weakening in the polar vortex by or later this week. So by Saturday, really early morning, we're starting seeing this weakening of this polar vortex, and that's going to allow for this cold air to once again start to dip into the north central United States. So here's a look now at Sunday early morning. You can kind of tell the overall dip in the jet stream. Could be seeing some really intense ridging for the east coast throughout Sunday morning, and that's going to kind of split the ridging pattern. So we're going to be seeing that really deep cold air start to make its way into the north central and upper Great Lakes by Sunday morning. So it's going to definitely be a really cold Sunday for you guys. And as we go towards now later Sunday night into Monday morning, we'll be seeing this overall trough start to really amp up. And here's that really significant dip in jet stream again. We're going to be seeing some very intense ridging off the east coast, and it's not really going to budge. It's going to really stay pretty set across the very east coast, and then of course some very intense ridging for the southwest. So basically we're just going to have a blocking low pressure in the central United States, bringing really deep cold air moisture with two high pressures on the east coast and one on the west coast. So overall it's going to basically stay across specific areas. And as we now go towards really now Monday afternoon into Monday evening, this deepest cold air is now going to arrive across much of the upper Great Lakes, and even bringing some slightly below average temperatures across the southeast. And then eventually this deepest cold air will make its way by Monday. And the reasoning why we're seeing a change mainly with the GFS is that the GFS is now having this trough dip a lot further eastward compared to future runs, or compared to past runs. Past runs had it kind of dipping directly into the central United States, kind of taken as a clipper pattern, because that obviously the further west this trough dips, the further west that ridge will be. So if it kind of dips this way around the Great Lakes instead of the north central, there's some high confidence that we can possibly see a very intense northeast snowstorm, and not just for the upper Great Lakes. So this is exactly the change we're seeing with the GFS. So here's the latest 18Z run, and we're starting to see a slight consistency between the GFS now, as well a little bit more towards the other models. Other models kind of had some decent remaining snow showers and snow accumulation for the northeast, but now the GFS is completely jumping and skipping a step from going to basically no snow or at least showing it last night in the models, to no snow for the northeast with this system, to now having a monster snowstorm, even including the coastal northeast. And that's kind of what we're seeing with the Canadian model. Yes, they're having this trough and polar vortex Arctic blast dip further east, and now the GFS is picking up on it. So could this actually transition towards more of a bigger threat? And if it were to transfer like we're talking about, you can kind of tell, look at this, not seeing too much activity now for the upper Great Lakes. It's definitely downtrended a lot for the Great Lakes, now only getting rain across portions of, now getting rain all the way to Green Bay, getting rain even across much of Lake Michigan. So it's going to be very isolated, this snow. And you're probably wondering, how is this going to bring snow for the northeast if it's super duper far north? Well, good question. Well, after this trough is going to dip, and again, this is Sunday afternoon, just so you guys know. So as the trough dips really intense into the upper Great Lakes on Monday morning, all this really cold rain really to the east of that cold air advection and along the warm conveyor belt, a lot of it is actually going to convert to snow in the overnight hours into early Monday morning. So here's the main area of low pressure. You can kind of tell the trough is kind of somewhat right here. You can kind of tell the overall isobars. So the coldest air is going to be somewhat around right here. However, as we go to the overnight hours, the lows will obviously be pretty cold all across the eastern United States, but that's where we're going to start seeing that snow. So by early Monday morning, a lot of this rain specifically towards the west of this new area of low pressure. So we're going to be seeing a main cold front, then a kind of a second low pressure is going to develop. And this is actually going to be an example of an and a cold front where all that main moisture is actually going to be to the west of that low pressure. So this is going to be a very interesting setup. So this is actually going to be a very interesting cold front pattern where here's the main low pressure that's stretching that massive cold front, and that low pressure is actually developing slightly west of that cold front. So basically everything to the west of that low pressure, that smaller low pressure developing along a stationary boundary with that main front. So here's the main front. A second low pressure is going to develop along that cold front. That's going to be the big reason why we're going to be seeing some snow. So this is kind of somewhat going to be from the same system. It kind of branches off from that main low pressure. So it's going to definitely be very interesting. So by Monday, late morning, you're going to be seeing some really heavy snow from the Great Lakes stretching to the lands west of the Appalachians, including there Charleston, getting into a portion of the southeastern Kentucky, and as well getting towards the Great Smoky Mountains. And as we go now towards Monday afternoon, here's that main area of low pressure stretching that cold front, and the area of low kind of branching off is eventually not going to be towards New England, and that's where all that snow is going to just be west of these low pressure. So this is definitely going to be a very interesting setup. And this is definitely not what other models are hinting, but it's starting to show consistency, especially as GFS did show something like this as well for 12Z, but very heavy snow all across now, even coastal northeast and even towards the coastal mid-Atlantic, getting some snow for Chesapeake Bay, getting some snow for Washington, D.C., Annapolis, and then eventually getting some really heavy snow now towards Monday evening as this low pressure now starts to move off the coast. All that cold air is now going to be as far basically east as the actual coast itself. So a lot of that rain and moisture to the west, that low pressure is going to be snow, including the coast. So possibly a huge uptrend for New York City, huge uptrend there for even the Chesapeake Bay, watching out for Dover, Delaware, Salisbury, Maryland, as well watching all across, of course, upper New England. So definitely a very interesting setup. Now look at the overall CMC here. So let's go ahead and look. So this is now by Saturday evening, still getting that snow, still a front-sided system. A lot of precipitation going to be to the north of that low pressure. So really heavy snow on Saturday into Sunday early morning all across the upper north central and as well upper Midwest. So the CMC is still having a pretty amped up snowstorm for the Great Lakes. It has not downtrended too much. If anything, it uptrended compared to yesterday. So still getting some really intense snowfall by Sunday early afternoon all across the Great Lakes, and there you can see the low pressure stretching that way with the cold front. So you're going to be seeing a lot of rain to the east of that cold front. And then as that polar vortex starts to really dip towards the Great Lakes, going to be seeing some really deep cold air, basically to the front side of the system, part of this low pressure. So really intense snowfall possibly all across Sunday across the Great Lakes, including upper Michigan, Wisconsin, Minnesota, as well including lower Ontario. And then of course going to be seeing a lot of that rain to the east of that cold air advection and that warm conveyor belt. And then by Sunday night into early Monday morning, they're going to be seeing that really heavy snow all across the upper Great Lakes, and of course eventually getting toward as far east as Quebec. But they're not having that transition from that rain to the east of that cold front in the Appalachians converting to snow really. So the CMC is still remaining pretty consistent with it being mainly a Great Lake storm. By Monday afternoon, it is going to bring in some lake effect snow, some pretty heavy snow showers and snow squalls behind the low pressure as that cold air finally catches up, and it's going to continue to have that lake effect snow in effect until really late as Tuesday and even Wednesday. But definitely not showing what the GFS is showing. And then last but not least, the European model. So let's see what the European has to say. So here's the overall look at Saturday afternoon into the evening. Very heavy snow all across the far upper northern United States, including the upper Great Lakes and northern plains, including the Canadian border. So overall, pretty good snow from practically northeastern Montana, much of North Dakota, much of upstate Wisconsin, upstate Michigan, upstate Minnesota. And then by Sunday, basically by Sunday afternoon, this snow is going to make its way all the way up to the opposite side of the Great Lakes, getting towards New York, but still having a similar approach to the CMC, still having some really, really intense snow all across the upper Great Lakes, including near Marquette, Traverse City, and eventually to Green Bay and Duluth. And then, of course, there you see that still that rain, that cold, that trough is not going to dip as far south as the GFS, which is actually very funny because the GFS had the trough dipping like far north yesterday, and now it's completely changed. And again, this is, you can kind of tell the similarities between the between the CMC and European still having that main snow across basically Ontario and lower Quebec, but still going to have that remaining lake effect snow. Eventually, you see that cold front's going to be far over here at this point, so all that remaining moisture is going to be some pretty intense lake effect snow. So if the GFS isn't verified, we're probably still going to be seeing some pretty intense lake effect snow and snow squalls and some decent accumulation, but the GFS is definitely the most interesting. Speaking of the GFS, here the GFS snowfall total Kuchira. So here's the overall main storm itself from northern Montana, Montana, and towards the Midwest, and then the main part is now going to be developing all across the eastern corridor. So here's the overall track. You can kind of tell. So the low pressure is going to be basically right here. It's going to be starting this way. It's going to be actually the low pressure is going to be kind of down here. And it's all going to be pretty front-sided storm. So that main snow is going to be right here, and eventually, and then this low pressure, this is going to be the main low pressure, start to track pretty north as acting like a clipper. So all that main snow is going to be pretty much towards Canada. But a second, it's going to be that really intense cold front. It's going to be over here. Really intense cold front is going to be stretching basically all across the east. We're missing a second low pressure branching off, and that's going to be the big snow maker because there's going to be so much moisture along the warm conveyor belt. We're seeing a lot of advection. We're seeing some really good snow developing. So far, far, far northern United States. I mean, when I mean far, I mean like, look how far north it is. It's basically riding the Canadian border. We could possibly see anywhere from maybe I'd say a few inches as high as nearly a foot across upstate Minnesota, upstate North Dakota, and far northeastern Montana. It's been pretty inconsistent. It's been up north and south, north and south, north and south. So I can't give you a good estimate, but this is the latest look at the northeast, getting accumulating snow all the way as far south as Tennessee towards the mid-Atlantic coast and as well northeast coast. So getting anywhere from an inch to 2 inches all across near Frankfort, Kentucky, Lexington, Kentucky, getting some good snow. Really, basically just to the east of the just to the west of the Appalachian, including Pittsburgh, Youngstown, Ohio, Cleveland, Charleston, and then getting some good snow eventually for the coastal northeast, getting around an inch or so, not too much for New York City, getting anywhere from 1 to 3 inches there for Dover, all across the mid-Atlantic, and then in the highest elevation, that's where we're probably going to guarantee snow. These areas will probably get snow no matter what in the Adirondacks, Upper Appalachians, and Great Lakes, but eventually up there we'll be getting more than half a foot. Here's a look at the CMC, or yeah, this is a look at the CMC. They're still really consistent on this really intense Great Lake effect snow. It's a bit further south than the GFS, so it is definitely having this snow line going all the way down here. And if you look at the GFS, it's definitely pretty different. And as of now, I'm going to have to say that the CMC for the Midwest part is probably more reasonable. That's because, of course, that cold air is going to be, at this point, still pretty far south, so we're still going to be seeing those really cold temperatures, so I really wouldn't doubt that it remains front-sided and still brings in a ton of snow all across these areas. But looking at really across the far, far northern portion of the state, like the panhandle of Michigan, far upstate Wisconsin, much of north-central Minnesota, and northeastern and north-central North Dakota could have a chance to probably get at least over 6 inches, but some models are like the GFS are hinting over a foot, and it's going to continue all the way, of course, eventually towards Ontario and Quebec, and then we're still going to be seeing that additional lake effect snow with a few inches possible. Like I said, these areas are probably still going to get snow no matter what model you look at. And here's a look at the European, pretty similar, but has the most intense snow. Eventually, once you get towards Michigan, still having, like I said, probably still looking at half a foot or so, 6 inches at least across those areas that I was talking about, and then still getting that additional lake effect snow. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys later.